Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. You can find me personally at Justin Bizzarro. Again, that's 2 Z's, 2 R's, and a B as in boy. And then you can also find the community that we're building for food and beverage entrepreneurs, where we've dumped all the information for you guys in there, free, everything I've learned in my head. 28 years plus, all of the years my family's been in food and beverage, from co-packaging to grocery stores to food trucks to trends, threats, integrating spirituality and core values into your business, integrating God's kingdom into your business. All of that input is being put onto Instagram at GorillaBrave. Facebook will follow soon. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be on the website. I didn't know how to do all of it after all the businesses, everything sort of came apart. I'm going to keep emphasizing this for everyone. It all came out of my head when I went into a moment of silence and spent what I was going to be 40 days and 40 nights with God. And instead I spent time with him for almost 7 months in as much silence as I possibly could. Listening always, and only giving input that I felt would help benefit his kingdom. It was a hard exercise. You truly learn your selfish intentions when you do that. But one of the things that came out was pour out everything you can into newsletters, into pamphlets, into social media, into training, into everything you learn from this podcast, from the hundreds of entrepreneurs that have been on here. Pour it out. Put it somewhere that will benefit everyone, because in your head it benefits no one. Powerful. And so GorillaBrave is that outlet. It's where we will do networking. It's where they'll do events. It's where I hope to have people like our guest Tom here of Carolan, a human resource specialist, come in and talk to you guys also at some of these summits and networking events about human resources. That's why I brought him on the show. That's why I also syndicate him on the other shows that I do. You'll hear this episode not only on Justin the Food Entrepreneurs, but the Centurion Leadership Battalion and the Justin and Ryan Bizzarro show as we build those, because this information that you're going to get from him is that important. How do I know? I took the time to build a relationship with him. How did that happen? There was someone that God put in both of our lives that facilitated it. Period. Tom, how you doing today, man? I'm fired up today. I got all fired up on my other podcast, so I'm already fired up coming in.
Well, you always fire me up, man. So I'm matching your energy, man. I am excited, and I love hearing you talk, and I love your faith journey, and I love everything you just said, and I can't wait to talk to you today.
Absolutely. So because I want to anchor you as an entrepreneur, your journey, you're also an author, father, leader, husband, leader in your community. I'll keep stacking, but I want to get the stories in there because there's a lot of stories around this. We both have a hard stop that we both want to get to as entrepreneurs and as having lives. So I want to try to crush out as much of this information about your life as possible and then tie it in. And if we need to continue with the audience into a part 2 to really give them some nuggets, we can always do that. So I give you the freedom because it is your show, Tom, and you're the one that's going to deliver the most impact. And I want it to be about you and your book, by the way, because it changed my perspective on human resources. And I've had thousands of employees and been through thousands of human resources and trainings and things like that. And my sister even went to school for it as part of the family business. So I've had it in my life a lot. But your take on it, I think, is refreshing and important for the audience to stay tuned for. And then ultimately, we're going to talk about the book. I will put it in the link, whether it's this episode or the next one, but it is important. So I'm going to anchor all of that. Let's go to baby Tom. Tom, where'd you grow up? What was your family like? Sort of let's build the storyline and stack the skills that ends up being here, because I want to emphasize for the audience the stacking of skills and life experiences, hard and not, that lead to the forging of who you are right now.
Yeah. Well, Jersey boy, born and raised in North Jersey in a middle class community, blue collar family. My dad was a mechanic. Neither of my mom or dad went to college. My mom worked in, a doctor's office and eventually became like the office manager. So she was like an overachiever from where she came from. But I didn't know it. I was raised from very humble beginnings, but I grew up in the 80s. As long as I had my parachute pants and my, my, my Reebok sneakers,
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
good to go, man. I have a twin brother and an older sister, and we grew up in a very close knit Italian family. And we're Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school, played sports, was, captain of my football team, captain of my wrestling team, and then eventually went to Rutgers University, wrestled at Rutgers, and then and graduated and wound up getting a job in sales. And that was, that was the origin. That was the I guess the foundation of my youth.
Absolutely. I want to anchor a pivoting point for you. Your health, your exercise, everything in your life is very important. There was a point in your life as a kid that helped transition that for you. We can talk about what it's also like to be a twin growing up, because I think there's a uniqueness there probably that I don't understand. But talk to me a little bit about this transition, because if anyone meets Tom in person, I know I don't have video. I just had a conversation today about it, guys, that I need to do a video. I'm getting heavily pushed, so I will do that, and I will bring the guests back on. But Tom's in great shape. Tom cares about the longevity of his life, making sure he takes care of what God gave him in terms of his vessel. But there is a pivoting point that I think is important in the mentality and attitude of who you are from your childhood on.
Yeah. I know. So I just in sharing this with your audience, Justin is talking about a story that I shared with him and a group that we were involved in on a retreat. And it is a huge kind of pivotal transition moment for me, but I was a fat kid when I was much younger. I mean, I used to get picked on. I had no self-esteem. I was cast as Humpty Dumpty in the school play when I was in first grade. Yeah, I was that kid. I was the kid that at the town pool, I would wear a t-shirt in the I wouldn't take my shirt off. I was just too ashamed and too embarrassed. And I remember growing up in North Jersey, being really close-knit Italian. We spent our Sundays, as probably you did, and the rest of the Italians that are probably listening, having Sunday macaroni, Sunday gravy, we called it, at my uncle's house. And it was like, standard Italian dinner time was like 2:30, 3:00, because it was an early thing. And we had our macaroni, and then, the kids would go out and play. And I remember my uncle had he was in a great neighborhood. And there was a bunch of kids, and there was a lot of open space, and it was on the like a kind of a dead end street. So anyway, long story short, we were playing manhunt, which is like hide and go seek, but with teams. And my brother and I were on the same team, and there was like ready, set, go kind of thing. And everybody disappeared. And, we start running as fast as we can to hide from the other team before we got caught. And sure enough, we come up to a fence. And the fence, I don't know, it was probably 3 or 4 feet high. It might as well be 10 feet high, because in my mind, I was too fat to climb the fence. And my brother scaled the fence, no problem. He gets to the other side, and, he turns around and he's like, come on, like, let's go, hurry up. And I was frozen. I was too afraid. I was too fat. And I said, no, just go ahead. I can't do it. And he just looked at me and he was like, yes, you can, because I just did. And, it dawned on me at that point, he's my twin. And I looked at him and I was like, well, shit, if he could do it, like, why can't I do it? And I climbed up the fence and I jumped over to the other side. And when my feet hit the ground, it was like chains broke off of me. It might not seem like a big deal because little kids climb fences all the time. But for me to be able to do that, it opened my eyes to this idea that I could do what other people can do. My brother did it. I can do it. He did it. I can do it. She did it. I can do it. I no longer looked at the wall and the barrier as something that I couldn't do because I was too fat. And I'll tell you, it was pivotal. Literally everything changed for me at that moment. Confidence and just my mindset started to change. And I eventually became a Division I college athlete, wrestled in college. And, I'm almost 60 years old and I'm probably in the best shape of my life. And I think it's because there's still a fat kid in me that I won't let come out. And that's my story.
I love it. Let's talk about childhood. You graduate from Rutgers. What does life have in store? The journey to be an entrepreneur. Let's talk about those years, lessons learned, stacking of skills on top of this very important skill, which I'll just anchor as uncomfortability, supported by someone who believed in him. Period. That's it. It's a basic formula, guys, to how we build our companies, to how we build our employees, to how we build humans. Yep. Uncomfortable situation, believing in them, not doing it for them, believing in them. Anyway, go on, Tom.
Yeah. So after I graduated Rutgers, I wasn't totally sure of what I wanted to do, but I knew it should have been something in sales because I just love people. I love communicating with people. I love to speak. I'm not afraid to be in front of groups or, being put in awkward situations. So when I graduated Rutgers with a communications degree and an English minor. And, a buddy of mine had gotten a job selling HMO plans. This is back in the early 90s. It was 1990. And he got me a job at his company, US Healthcare. So I sold HMO plans before anybody knew what an HMO was. And it was good for a bit. I learned a lot and there was a great foundation, but it wasn't enough for me. I felt like I needed to do something else. I wound up transitioning to pharmaceutical sales. Did that for 10 years and had a lot of great mentors. Things went really well for me, but my biggest mentor was my uncle. My uncle is a international patent attorney, very well educated, went to Yale University, super smart guy. And I'll never forget, he told me one day, he said, just understand that you'll do well. You could do well. You have all the skills, but you'll never get rich working for someone else. And when he said that, it planted a seed in my head, telling me that I needed to have my own business at some point. Fast forward, doing great in pharmaceutical sales. Everything's great. Meet a guy at the gym, literally was on the machine next to me, started up a conversation, and he invited me to meet his partners. They were starting up an IT technology recruiting company, consulting company, and they wanted to see if I'd help them with their sales and marketing. And I did that on a part-time basis as a consultant and loved it, crushed it, killed it, and eventually quit my day job and went to go work with these guys and took a chance. And that's how I got into the business world before going out on my own. But that's how I learned the recruiting business was from the IT side.
Okay. So, think there's a little bit, we've talked sales and healthcare, sales and pharmaceuticals. Then we're talking about IT recruiting, just so I'm clear. You're tying different skills together, obviously. So you get in the recruiting, why, where's the passion there? What was the mindset in the switch? Because you're switching again in many ways. Like, it's not easy to switch industries. It's not easy to switch trajectories. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you come up with that decision? Because it isn't easy.
So this is one of those moments where when I'm in prayer and want to remind God of the the greatness, the blessings, the miracles in my life. One of the miracles and one of the blessings was the direction that he put me in. So the passion and the course correct happened because my wife told me in no uncertain terms, hey, look, after the baby's born, I'm not going back to work. So go back a little bit. My wife is pregnant with my son and gives birth. Everything's great. And she had a great job. I mean, we live in North Jersey. It's expensive, taxes, the whole deal. And now I find out that she no longer is going to be working. So I was like, all right, well, I gotta find something to bridge that gap. I got to find a second job. Literally, the catalyst was I thought I needed to find a second job. The conversation that I explained to you that happened in the gym was like a week later. So you want to talk about divine intervention and God stepping in and putting somebody in my path that would introduce me to a new career. I wasn't really expecting, that wasn't what I was looking for, but that's what God put in front of me. And I took a chance. And by taking a chance, I learned the business. I learned the recruiting industry and the recruiting business from the technology side, which I had no interest in. It's just, that's what was presented to me. And I went with it. And then eventually I wound up starting my own recruiting firm in healthcare, in life sciences, pharmaceuticals. But it all stemmed from that one moment.
I love this. Let's talk about what all of these things have in common. What skill did you gain through each of these ventures that you're utilizing now in this endeavor? What is it that you picked up in sales maybe, or from a mentor or a coach that you've sort of picked up along the way that has helped lead to the success of this recruiting that you're doing? Because recruiting, it has similarities, but it's also different. And
yeah. Well, and you're right, because the recruiting job and the recruiting industry, if you're a recruiter, you're a salesperson. It's not called that, but in my world, with what we do, it's a sales job. To answer your question, Justin, the number one skill that I've developed, and whether it's learned or innate, is the ability to develop relationships. Two things: the ability to develop relationships and the ability to transfer energy and passion to other people. Like, I just get fired up, man. I'm very passionate and have a lot of energy. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do the shit out of it. And I'm going to give it 1,000%. And people feel that. I do genuinely appreciate and love people. So I like to pour into people, and I like to get to know people, and I like to see people, and I like people to know that they're seen. And that's helped me to develop relationships. And by developing relationships, it's built this network, community, business, all of it. It's the most important skill that I think you need to learn as an entrepreneur, is the ability to develop strong relationships and the ability to transfer energy to others.
I agree with you. And to just add to the last part that I think is important is, when you do that, you need to automatically have something in place. I think Tom does it through exercise and spirituality. That's how I do it also. I also do it through growing the humans around me. It also fills my bucket. So interestingly, as I'm giving, it's also filling. So I never actually truly run out. I can be pretty run down sometimes. Sometimes someone can take more energy than I can produce in that day. But generally, I always can produce it. So I think I agree with you, be able to transfer that energy and then be able to keep making sure you have a way. Some people would call it balance, but I call it, for me, I gain balance. I just talked about this before. Is I gain balance by the faster I go. And I don't mean faster by making bad decisions. I mean by faster in opportunity. I mean, if I'm going to record a podcast and I'm going to do this, I'm going to put my full effort into it, all in. That's what I mean.
Mm.
And so that's where we're talking about here. And I think that that's important, because if we go back to the God thing, and we talked about this on another podcast before this one and some others, is work being worship and Christian values. There's no other words tied so closely as in we are called to business as Christians. Not all of us, but those of us who are, we need to take it and be industrious in it, because it creates jobs. It creates things. It creates legacies. It creates the ability for humans to have their own freedoms. Yes, we are not solving their problems. We are allowing them to solve their own problems and build their own relationships as well with God. And so I also will say that the relationship thing, I agree, is the most important thing. It is a skill, and it does take time, and it takes selflessness. And I don't know how else to describe it other than, if it's not genuinely people that are high functioning, high abundance, high energy can usually tell what the energy is, and you're not going to get very far for very long.
Agreed. Totally agree. It's got to be authentic and genuine, and it can't be forced, because people feel like they're being sold to when you force that. And I just, it's funny. My wife is the opposite of me, in the sense that I am very extroverted. She's very introverted. So when I'm around people, the more I'm around people, the more energy I get, the more my bucket is filled. When she's around people, the more her energy is drained. So after social interaction, my wife is exhausted, whereas I'm pumped. I'm pumped up.
I know, I could go do another round. Yeah. No, but I think it's an important thing to talk about is, and knowing that, like, if we have to do things, but I think relationships, for me, I was introverted. I became more extroverted through business, through confidence, through things like that. Building relationships is something I had to work on, because it takes a while before, and I'm going to say this, before we understand what a transactional relationship is and what a growing relationship is. They're two very different things. And it's important that we have the discernment that we get in life, and we can gain this skill from prayer and God and spirituality, asking for it, spending time with God in God's word. But the discernment there is a very important thing, because we want to be able to discern what we're bringing into our businesses. What seeds are we planting? Does that mean as Christians we love all? Of course, but within our businesses that are trying to build legacy and influence, we have to be righteous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to anchor that as well. That means building relationships. How do we build relationships? Well, generally, if we're doing the right thing and we're building our businesses in the right way, we're building our cultures in the right way, we'll attract two people. One to take advantage of it, or one that them and us will mutually benefit. There'll be a lot of noise in between there. But generally, those are the two you want to pay attention to in business. And that the only way to understand those two is to spend time with both and understand what the true intentions is. So what's my point? My point is this: when someone asks me, how do you go from introverted to extroverted, or you learn to build relationships if you don't have them or someone didn't teach you, show up.
Yeah.
Eventually the comfort, discomfort, awkward conversation, inability to read a room turns into something else. And it's just like a muscle. If you work it, do it slowly. If you're introverted, it's what happened to me over time, slowly. And thanks to my parents also, and being entrepreneurs, introducing me slowly. Someone telling me to do a podcast. Oh, my voice gets a little louder. Now I'm more comfortable with public speaking. Slowly, guys. But it's one, making the effort. It's two, knowing that it's part of our purpose. We are supposed to use our voices as our testimony to life to help others grow. And that requires, if you're going to help someone grow, you need the ability to be able to build a relationship with them. Otherwise, there's nothing to grow upon. There's no foundation. So it's true in business too. It's true with your employees. So,
and your test is your testimony.
Yeah. So let's
Don't
talk
be
about that. Let's talk about your test, your testimony. What leads you to this book? Because this book is doing good in the world. We talked a little bit about it in pre-production for the show. Talk to me a little bit about this, like the message that you feel needs to get out there, how and why a book, and sort of how you've built your business. So I've asked 3 questions there. I don't know if we'll get to them all. I hope so, but I think they all matter because you have values. So you've built a business around them. You've wrote a book to help others, which means you care about the benefit of the world and others and what that looks like. And then the third one, I think a little bit, maybe I'm going to re-ask the question a little bit. How do you involve yourself in your community and stuff in making impact? Because I know you are someone heavily involved in the world around you. I just want to talk about that a little bit. And I may ask the other question I was going to ask, but I'll save it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is the book came about because of a need. I get for a long time, many years, I get asked to help people that are in industries or in situations that that it's just strictly gratis, which is how I get to give back. So for example, if you came to me and said, "Hey, Tom, my son, my daughter, my neighbor, my niece, my nephew is looking for a job and they need help. They don't know the first thing. Can you help them?" I believe in giving back. I believe that I would want someone to do that for my child if they were in a capacity to help. So I always would spend a few minutes, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes or more, maybe looking at the resume, helping them with their resume, helping them before an interview, prepping them for interviews. All of the things that go into coaching someone who is trying to get a job. Well, I got to a point where I said, you know what? I'm saying the same things over and over. I'm giving the same advice over and over. And I started to realize that no one knows this stuff. No one teaches this stuff. So I put it all in a book. And I decided that book was going to be like a series of coaching sessions. Each chapter is a different coaching session, starting with the very beginning with, what's your mindset for a job search? What should it be? What should your resume look like? What type of job should you be pursuing? How do you network? How do you brand yourself? How do you interview? How do you negotiate a job offer? Each one of those coaching sessions is a chapter. And that's how the book came into being. And now what happens is when people come to me now, I'll still talk to them. I'll look at their resume, but I can give them all of the answers that they need and the direction and the guidance on what it takes to be successful in the job search process right now. And the book works. I know it works because people keep coming to me after they read it and they say, "Oh my God, I got the job." So I'm really proud of it. It's helping a lot of people and it's really doing exactly what I set it out to do.
I love this. What was it like to write it? I didn't know you were an English major. You had like a feather under your cap there. Talk to me about what it's like to write a book, what the process is. You're a business person, you're a salesperson. Things are very non-tangible in your world. So you're writing physical, tangible pages.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you what I think the best way to do it, or at least what worked for me, is to commit to and say, okay, when I decided I was going to write the book, I was very clear on what it was. I knew the title. I knew the goal. I knew exactly what the book was for. I needed to put it together in such a way that it made sense and it was a process. I wanted it to be an instructional and educational and informative guide for people to follow. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to allocate blocks of time. And it's not like wasn't like I said, okay, I'm going to write 1 page a day for the next 250 days, 250 pages, and I'm done writing my book. That's not how I did it. What I did was I took time on weekends and nights. I really didn't do a lot during the day, during my day job. And in those blocks of time, I would dedicate myself to specific chapters and get myself into a stream of consciousness, a flow state where the writing just became easy. And it wasn't always. There were days where I'm like, wow, man, this is really hard. And I'll give you an example. I actually had to rewrite the ending because I didn't like the ending. And I had to rewrite it. And when I went to do it, I had nothing. I had nothing left. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. And I don't know what's going to make this better and make me happy. And by scrapping it, and really, like you said, sometimes you have to be quiet and you just have to listen and let God work in you. And Justin, it just came to me. And it was like the Holy Spirit wrote the ending for me. It wasn't me. And I love the ending. And a lot of people have said to me, wow, I really like the ending of your book. It was the hardest part of the whole thing, which eventually became the easiest because once God took over, that was it. It was over.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I'm going to anchor this from seminary, from theology. Okay? God can't use us if we didn't use our will to gain the skills that he needs to use for us to do our purpose. Does that make sense to everyone?
Amen.
If we don't use the will we've been given to gain skills in life, he can't use us for our purpose.
I love it. I love it.
So you have to be intentional. And I know a lot of us slack on early in life in school, and parents pamper us and privilege us, or vice versa. They don't give us anything and life is hard. There is always that thing right there that we can do better and not allow it to happen to someone else or someone else in the future. How do we do that? It's not always with our money. Okay, I want to emphasize this. What's going to make more impact at this point? Tom's book or Tom's $500 he donates down to the cancer place? Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't donate money for research. Just don't get me wrong. Just hear me out before everyone's like, and hit the stop button. Here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Tom's book could get someone a job or a college education that ends up being the discoverer of the cure of cancer. What's more important? His time is 5 to 15 minutes he spends with an individual that may have impact, and then eventually those little relationships turn into a book that has big impact. Those are the things to think about when we're thinking about things. Not everything is always what it appears to seem. And so not true. Everything is going to have the impact we think it is. So what we do now when we invest it even if it is a financial transaction, there has to be a level of selflessness to it in love. And that includes boundaries on when the transaction ends and I'm doing more than I'm getting paid for. That's true too. Because people ask me all the time, how do I deal with that? How do you deal with that in profit, whatever? It's still the same. Business is business. It's Christian. A transaction needs to take place, and it needs to be, and I do the service. I'm honest about it. I'm getting paid for what the value is determined. It can be determined by whatever. And making sure I deliver on the service, they're delivering the money, and both of us are doing it in a way that glorifies God. That's the way to do it. I don't know how else to describe it. But the reason that I'm saying this is important is because what Tom's doing is he, in his skill and his stacking of skills and letting God use him, not knowing necessarily what it's for, he's been able to do this. And there are people that write books that try to capture or whatever. I'm just going to write something and I'm going to get money and whatever and whatever. But there are also people that do it because they truly understand a need that is in the world and a way to help people gain freedom, and in that freedom grow in a light. Some of us are just catalysts. Some of us are just connectors. Some of us are leaders in time. Some of us are leaders all the time. But that's all I'm trying to say here. I'm going to flip the script real quick, Tom, since we're here. Let's flip it on the other side. I'm an entrepreneur. The same high quality candidates that you're helping coach to be high quality candidates. How do we as businesses then attract those same high quality candidates to our businesses and not lose them now that you've prepared them?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And one of the things that I help organizations with, my clients, is on recruiting and retention. And on the recruiting side, the first thing that has to happen is a company needs to have culture and core values. And without having a set culture and without having core values that drives that culture, you're going to be less attractive to an employee that wants to be a part of something fun, something special, something mission driven, something that they can go home and say, wow, you know what? We have a great team. It's a great company. It's a great culture. And money's important, but people don't always leave jobs because of money. They leave jobs because of bad people and bad companies, bad culture. That's why they leave. So when you're an organization, it all starts with your culture and your core values. It also stems on the recruiting side, a lot of it stems with how you treat people during the interview process and how you're able to court people. What I mean by that is one of the biggest mistakes I see in hiring is that the hiring authority or the hiring team, it becomes, what can this employee do for me? And why should we hire you? And listen, that is an important piece of it. But if you don't court the candidate, if you don't show the candidate that you see them as a person and that you're genuinely interested in their career and their future, and you want to develop them as a person at the same time that they're going to be contributing to the organization, they're going to go take a job with somebody that does court them and show them the appreciation and the intention of what it is that they have in mind for them for their career.
I'm going to put something in plain terms for everyone, and it is logical, but we, for some reason as humans, we think we're logical, but we're actually very illogical beings. And theologically, we've studied a lot of stuff, I see things, but this is the thing I emphasize here. In an interview process, and this I've seen very successful, and I don't know how Tom would recommend to do it, but one of the things to think about is, how can I grow this person so they can grow my business, so they can also grow the industry that I am, so they can then grow the world around me? Why is that important logically? Okay. One, if I hire the person, they grow the business, it grows me. Logically, it raises the boat. Okay, great. Okay. If I'm in business, I can only grow to the capacity of the industry can hold me that I'm in. Oh, I better make sure that this person that I'm investing in is a great candidate. I want to invest in them so they can grow the industry too, even if it means going to a competitor eventually. Why important? Capacity. Take it a step further. I care about my kids, my family, my future, whether or not they have a place. Even if I just do it selfishly and just want my bloodline to live on, logically, I need to have everyone do the best they can so they can provide the best opportunities in future for my bloodline and my legacy. Logically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I think what we just talked about is important, and what Tom's thing is important. I think we already know Tom's second book, maybe, from the perspective of the employer.
Yeah.
But this Tom, I'm gonna let you have the mic for a second. Let you quick talk. You talked about your uncle. I want you to talk about the importance of coaches, mentors, education, all of that stuff in your life. Right now, we have a little bit of time left. Let's talk about the importance of it to you, including exercise. I think that's the physical part is also part of the mental, spiritual, and emotional growth that we're all have to go through as humans, or should want to go through as humans. Let me rephrase it. But talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I think if you had asked me, I could answer this question. If you had asked me the question, what's one of the biggest mistakes I may have made earlier in my career, I think the answer would be the same, which is I didn't spend as much time working on my personal growth and development, educating myself, finding the right mentors, and working daily at the expansion of my mind. I think that we're constantly going to be challenged with what it is that we need to know and learn to get to the next level. It took me a long time. I wasn't reading books. I wasn't seeking out mentors. I wasn't listening to podcasts. I was just going a million miles an hour, trying to figure it out on my own. And one of the most important things in my life is all the things that you just said: mentorship, surrounding myself with the right people that have the entrepreneurial mindset, that have been successful in business, reading the right books, listening to the right podcasts. I've always worked out since I became an athlete, since I was probably 14 years old. So I don't miss days in the gym. There's no lack of discipline or consistency. Over the course of the past probably 10 years, I've been as disciplined in expanding and growing, my own personal growth journey and my spiritual journey has improved in the past 10 years. And so has my life and my business exponentially. I cannot stress enough the importance of feeding your mind and feeding your soul. I missed that for too long. And over the course, again, maybe it's 12 years, it's made such a big difference. It's so important. Surround yourself with the right people, surround yourself with the right tools and the right knowledge. Keep growing, keep learning. Don't think you know it all. And maybe it was arrogance, and maybe it was ignorance, and I needed to mature. But I'm in a place now where I just feed off of knowledge every day.
I love this, and I'm going to anchor this to a question I got, and it's an interesting question because I feel like I've battled it my whole life, and maybe it's a common one, and you eventually hear it so much you think it's common knowledge, but it's not common knowledge. That's a weird part. When you start hyper functioning, it becomes part of your lifestyle so much you assume it's common knowledge. So here's common knowledge. Yes, your friend circles will change. Yes, you will lose friends. Yes, all of those things happens, but it's not an abrupt thing that happens. What happens is we change ourselves, and as a result of the inside changing, the outside naturally changes. So that's what Tom's talking about. When he started to expand his mind and his thing, he's written a book. We've met. Same with me as I expanded my mind outside of just going crazy hard, working hard. While I read a lot and I did a lot of certification, a lot of education, I stuck in my field a lot. I didn't have a lot of people I surrounded myself that thought outside of what I was doing. That I learned with Tom and Arete as well. So Tom, where can they find you online? Where can they find your book? And how can they reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah, and I welcome it. The best way to find me is through LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn guy. Being a recruiter and being in the human resources space, you could find me at Tom Caravela on LinkedIn. That's Caravela, 1L. Yeah, reach out to me, reference this podcast. And then my book is called Job Search Mastery: How to Win Your Dream Job. So you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Amazon is the easiest place to find my book. You can put in Tom Caravela Job Search Mastery, it'll come right up where you'll find it. It was actually #1 bestseller on Amazon, and it's doing really well. So yeah, check it out and certainly reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, just Tom Caravela, same thing. But I do most of my interactions on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I've read the book. I love it. I think it's just so needed right now for all the individuals out there. It totally helps you understand the game you need to go to find jobs, and the game you need to go to find the jobs in the world and get you taught by the people that will teach you, that will eventually lead you to independence of entrepreneurship if you seek it, but go get the knowledge. That's why this book is important from that perspective. On the other side, we're going to talk more about being the employer and what it takes to recruit the best. I'm going to spend more time with Tom about that and hopefully have him back on the show. And I'm trying to convince Tom, everyone, to come to our summits that we're planning. We'll see if it works out with his schedule as I'm just planning them, but I'd love for him to educate you guys on a further level on this stuff for your businesses. So we'll talk about that too eventually, hopefully, as the future goes, because these podcasts are important for your businesses as entrepreneurs. I love you guys a lot. Thank you for sharing, liking, passing on, subscribing, all the things you guys do. Obviously, the thing you can do to support Tom the most, buy his book, support his business, find him out there, ask him questions, follow him on social media, all those great things. That's where you can find him. Check him out on LinkedIn. That's it, guys. I love you guys, and we're out.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you, brother.